So we're going to talk about the art of communication. How many of you would say communication is a strength of yours? You're a good communicator. Yep, some of you are. You're like, your hand's right up. I'm a good communicator. How many of you are not? You're not a good communicator. Okay, yep, I can see it. Some of you didn't even know how to raise your hand. You're like raising your, I don't know how to communicate this. So I understand. And in most marriages and in most relationships, there's typically one person that's not a great communicator, and a lot of times it's both that are not great communicators. So I'm going to help some people out today, and it's not just about if we communicate, it's how we communicate. And sometimes we fail to communicate and we lack communication and it leaves us in a bad spot. Have you ever been in a situation where someone didn't communicate well to you and it put you in a bad situation? You ever had that happen? Especially can happen in our marriages. I was thinking today, actually my wife reminded me of a story. We went with our family, my family, to go to Destin, Florida several years ago, and it's so much warmer there than it is here, but don't be thinking about that, all right? Focus in, okay. So we went to Destin, and we got on a plane, we're on our way, and my nephew, he's pretty young, he's probably like 8 years old. The guy in front of us had one of those really nice pens, like that nice silver or gold pen that has a case, high dollar pens. You know what I'm talking about? And so he had that pen, and he dropped it at some point in the flight. So when we land, we're in the very back of this little plane. We're waiting on him, and he's down, man, he's frantically looking for this pen. And so finally, I'm like, sir, can we help you with something? He's like, yeah, I lost this pen. I've got to find this pen. And I didn't know it, but I was talking to my brother or my wife or something, and when I talk, it's really important. So I was really into what I was saying, and I forgot, or I didn't realize my nephew had found that pen on the ground and reached over and put it in my pocket, my shirt pocket. So here's this guy frantically looking for a pen. Now I'm down looking for the pen. I'm down looking, and we're like head to head, and he looks and he goes, is that my pen? And I'm like, yeah, I don't know. I don't know how that got there, man. I didn't have any information. No one communicated with me, and I'm in a bad situation. So here's what I say. I don't know how that got there. Yeah, right. There was some turbulence, and the pen just randomly went into my pocket, right? And no, it didn't happen that way. So it got me put in a bad situation, and that happens in our lives. But again, it's not just if we communicate, it's how we communicate in our lives. Let's talk about communication in our marriages. If you're married, if you're single, let's just do this. If you're married, make some noise. If you're single, make some noise. All right, I like this crowd. Some of you are like, I love being single. Well, anyway, let's take a look at Romans 12:2. This is our verse we've been looking at all this series, our key verse. It says, don't copy the behavior and customs of the world, but let God transform you into a new person, and He does that by changing the way you think. Then you're going to learn to know God's will for you, which is good, pleasing, and perfect. Believe it or not, God did not introduce you to your spouse. Single people, God is not going to introduce you to your future spouse and say, well, good luck with that. No, God's plan is good, it's pleasing, and it's perfect. So if that's the case, we know God's not going to just put us in a bad situation. God's not going to put us in a bad marriage. So this is going to be good for everyone in the room. Great relationships are actually very unlikely if we follow the world's way of relationships. If you are following the way relationships happen in the movies or on The Bachelor or something like that, it ain't going to work out so well for you. So we've got to let God change the way we think about relationships as well. If you don't communicate well in your relationships will become unhealthy. Let me just tell you a story real quick. Do you guys ever think the stories I share, like God used Brad Hampton to just go through hell all his life so that he would have stories to share to help us not go through hell? So that's kind of what's gone on. So my wife and I, when we dated for a while, and a good while, and she was ready to get married, and I was not ready to get married. I just wasn't in a place to get married at that time. And we finally got to the place where I was ready. It's time to get engaged, y'all. And so I had it all planned out. I bought the ring. Okay, I went to, the restaurant, and they had the little 25-cent thing. I got the ring. I'm ready to go. We're going to New York City for a Hillsong conference. We've got some friends there that are going to video. We're going to the top of 30 Rock in New York City, and I'm going to propose to her. I've got it all planned out. But we had dated so long that I didn't want her to have any ideas. So someone had given her the idea that Brad may propose on this trip, and word got back to me. So I decided a great way to communicate would be to make sure and change her expectation. So I had the brilliant idea of inviting her over, sitting her down, and saying, hey, babe, I love you, but I just wanted to make sure you didn't have your expectations that we were going to get engaged on this trip, okay? I just wanted to make sure, and in my mind, I'm thinking, this is so brilliant, this is great, and my wife is very reserved and quiet until she's not, right? And she jumps up, and she storms out and slams the door, and it was actually a mystery, is she even going to go on the trip anymore? Major failure on my part because I was not communicating well. Ended up, she did go, we got engaged, greatest decision of her life. I'm a blessing to her, and it's amazing. So, miscommunication leads to misunderstandings, and misunderstandings lead to mistrust. You follow what I'm saying? You misunderstand each other enough. If there's enough miscommunication, at some point, there's going to be mistrust in the relationship, and that's where it gets dangerous. Here's an example. My wife is not allowed to go get me fast food. Because it doesn't matter how crispy and golden those Chick-fil-A chicken strips are. If you don't bring me any ranch dipping sauce, it's all for nothing. And my wife doesn't know how to get the right dipping sauces, y'all. If you go to Taco Bell and give me a Crunchwrap Supreme that's fresh out of the oven, yes, thank you, Jesus. No mild sauce, what were you thinking? Y'all feel me? Come on, some of you know what I'm talking about. So she's not allowed to do that anymore because of mistrust. Now, that happens on a I'm not going to look at her right now. I'm not going to look at her, and probably better if she wasn't in here. So mistrust begins to grow, though, not just in our fast food runs, but in other areas of our life, in time management, money, and so on. So we want to correct some of that today. Did you know the online world has changed the way we communicate? Think about it. We can now go share our mind without any consequences and any accountability. I mean, is anybody on Facebook in the room? Yeah, and we all dread it, right? We all regret that we're on Facebook. But, I'm just cruising through Facebook, looking at y'all's kids' pictures and liking them. Like, man, I love this. And then I'll come to, a 4029 article about something controversial, and I'll just happen to go look at the comments. You guys ever do that? And it was a mistake, okay? Because it is awful the way people are divided and hate on each other. And it could start out with like, hey, well, Jesus loves you. And then 3 paragraphs later, they're saying, well, you're an idiot. Like, what just happened? You were just loving them, and now it's bad. And that is creating a new world for how we communicate to one another. We sometimes take the practice of what we say on social media with no consequences and accountability, and we apply that into our marriages. And that's a mistake. Amen, somebody, if you know what I'm talking about. Amen, if you've been there before. So, I made the mistake a few weeks ago. I told y'all there was a controversial thing going on in New York, and I posted about it. And I normally don't, because let me tell you why. If you ever feel like as a pastor I need to stand my ground, let me just tell you, standing your ground on social media is a waste of time. What's not a waste of time is developing a relationship where there's trust and you can now share something because there's relationship equity. You guys following me? So that's the way we need to live our life. Jesus didn't jump around on social media. He wasn't on Tinder. He was walking around loving on people. He wasn't on social media, Facebook, Instagram. He was in their homes. He was hanging out with them. He was loving on them. Just making sure y'all believed that. Okay. So we're training up cowards. Speak your mind, no consequences, no accountability, and that is ruining relationships. That's ruining marriages and so on. So we have to change the way we communicate in our homes and in our relationships. Let's take a look at the 5 levels of communication. This isn't something I came up with. This is actually a scientific thing. So 5 levels of sharing communication. The first one is this. This is the ground floor. This is superficial. This is, hey, how's it going? Good, how are you? That's it. It's very superficial. What's up? Not much. The end, right? We all have that. That happens a lot on Sunday, not because we're mean, because we're just in passing. Hi, hi, hi. So that's the first level. So in your relationships, superficial happens. Number 2 is this. Information. This is, hey, you need to pick up the kids today. Hey, we're going to have pizza for dinner tonight. Information. Okay, we all get there in our marriages. Number 3 is ideas and opinions. So now it's getting a little bit more risky because now you're including the other person. It's not just your opinion. It's not just you, but you're including the person. So instead of we're having pizza for dinner, it's, hey, what do you want for dinner? Uh-oh, that's risky, right? That's risky in some of your houses. So what do you want for dinner? You're asking questions of each other. Where do you want to go on vacation? You're getting their opinion, and it's risky because what if they come back and say something you don't like? So a lot of times we're careful in our relationships how far we go because the risk factor. The next one is this. Values and feelings. This is when it gets a little deeper. Friendships are being built through this. We say things like, what's wrong? You seem upset. We care about the person. There's more risk involved. Marriages get here, but they rarely stay here. They resort back to 2 and 3. Marriages that can stay here are great marriages. Marriages that can mostly live here are great marriages. Right now, if I ask you, what is it that your spouse needs from you? Would you know the answer? If I ask you right now, what is it that your spouse dreams of? Would you know the answer? I heard a pastor recently say that in marriage counseling, this is the first thing he asks. He asks each of them, write down what you need from your spouse and what they need from you. And he compares them, and he said years and years of counseling, he's never once had a couple get even close. That's a problem. We need to know about each other. We need to care. We need to go deeper with sharing values and feelings. And then finally, number 5, this is the one that very few marriages get to, intimacy and confession. And not just intimacy the way you're thinking, but I'm talking like intimacy with your deepest feelings and thoughts and ideas. And now you're starting to share that deep part of who you are. Now understand this. Many of you have this relationship, number 5 at the top, the intimacy and confession. You have that, but you only have it with God. So you're willing to tell God your deepest, darkest secrets and habits and dreams, and you'll say it in a prayer by yourself. You'll speak it on a Sunday, but you don't necessarily share that information with your spouse because of risk. There's so much risk. What if I share my greatest dream with my spouse who I'm with for life and they tell me no? What if I tell my spouse, I think God's calling me to quit my job and to go do something else? What are they going to say? So this is a really troubled area for many people because we don't ever get here. We only go there with God. On the other side of the spectrum, this is the area where in a marriage, if there's infidelity, or maybe there's a pornography addiction or something really deep and dark that we share because we're afraid if I tell them they might leave me. The consequences of what might happen, I'm fearful of that, so I keep it to myself and we never get to level 5. So these are the scientific levels of where we are in our relationships. And some of you, I know you've been calculating in your mind where you are with your spouse. So now I want to look at another list. These are the 4 barriers of communication. You've probably heard, have you guys ever heard that money is the number 1 reason for divorce? You guys heard that? Well, the truth is communication is, because if you communicate well, then money doesn't become an issue. It's misspending, misuse, and so on. So really, it's communication. So I think it's important we understand what are the barriers that are keeping us from getting to the best and most intimate place in our relationships. Number 1 is this, is withdrawal. This is a barrier. You get into a heated match, and instead of going deeper in your relationship, you withdraw. Does anybody not like conflict? I don't like conflict. Some of you are like, I'm not raising my hand. There's too much conflict involved, so I'm not going to do it. I don't like conflict. I'm not a fan of it. I like things to just be okay. Is anybody like that? Just everybody be okay. Everybody be happy. I just want things to be okay. So number one is withdrawal. So we get in a fight and you're laying in the bed. You know, it's that kind of fight where you turn your back and she turns her back and you won't even look at each other. And some of y'all are in like a full-size bed. I don't know how you do it. You need to get a bigger bed for these withdrawal moments. Number two is escalation. You start speaking over one another. Things start getting louder. Let me tell you how big of a deal that is. I have a son who at 2 years old, probably 2.5, he already knew and understood when my wife and I were having a marriage opportunity. He can tell. At 2.5 years old, my little boy would start saying, hey, stop. Hey, don't. He can tell that there's something going on. So that tells me if a 2.5-year-old can comprehend, bless you, what's going on, then it probably is something we need to pay attention to. Would you agree? So escalation, saying things you regret. We've all been there. We've all said things that we regret, and hopefully we come back the next day or after we've cooled off. Yelling and screaming are a sign of insecurity. And what we think we're doing when we get onto our spouse or yell at them, we think that we're going to change their mind when really all we're doing is backing them into a corner and creating even more insecurity and dividing even more in the marriage. Did you know that scientifically, especially in men, that if your heart rate is above 100 BPM, you can no longer process social interaction. 100 BPM. So here's my challenge. Go get an Apple Watch, and the next time you get in a fight, you can just be going like crazy. I think, hang on, babe. I'm at 100 BPM. We're going to have to shut this down. Shut it down. Let's go get some ice cream, right down where we were. And when my heart rate goes down, we'll get back at it. Just try something like that. Because when you get heated, do you guys realize when you get really heated, you become like the Hulk. You become something you can't even understand. Like, how did I say that? I mean, your face gets red and you start sweating and you get upset. That seems like the absolute worst time to tell your feelings to somebody, right? Yet that's exactly when we want to get it all out. What you did yesterday and what you forgot my ranch dipping sauce 6 weeks ago and I had to eat my chicken strips without them. Man, y'all didn't even laugh at that. That was embarrassing. All right. Number 3 is this belittling. When we start degrading, this keeps us from building great marriages, great relationships when we begin to belittle or degrade the person. And again, this is a habit that is coming out of the World Wide Web and the way that we live online. And we say hurtful and mean things and belittle one another. If I can't prove my point to you, then I'm just going to put you down. And bullying and all this is coming from this kind of behavior. And number 4, the greatest barrier of all is when we get to a point of false belief, meaning you can't do anything right. Like, not just the saying, because we've all said, you don't think I can do anything right. But no, it's when you do something right and what you did right still wasn't right in their eyes. It's a bad place to be. So now we know the levels of communication and relationships. Now we know what the barriers are. Let's take a look at what God's word says about relationships. Matthew 12:36, Jesus says this. Let me tell you something. Every one of these careless words is going to come back to haunt you. There's going to be a time of reckoning. Words are powerful. Take them seriously. Listen to this couple of lines. Words can be your salvation, or words can be your damnation. That's powerful about words. And it said, Jesus says this, he says, these words are going to come back to haunt you. What he's saying is this: we are planting seeds every time we speak into someone's life. Some kind of seed. And when we plant seeds, they are going to germinate, they're going to grow, they're going to produce something. And if we're speaking negativity and speaking awful things and we're getting in fights and saying things we regret and we're saying terrible things to our kids and the people around us, eventually that's going to grow and come back and it's going to haunt us. Are you following me tonight? So we have to be careful with our words. Let's plant seeds that bring life. In a world where it's lacking, in a world where people need it, let's speak life. So I want to close with a few things that I want to challenge many of you with. 7 ways to communicate well, and I'm going to go fast. I know 7's a lot, but I hope you're taking notes. You can get on our app and take notes. You can write them down, but the most important thing is that you listen to this, that we don't ever show up to church on a Sunday, just hear the words, check a box, and leave. But if we don't apply this stuff, if we don't apply God's word to our life, then I'm up here just wasting time. So apply this and see what God will do through you, okay? The Bible says that He's going to transform the way we think. He does that through His word. Here is His word. Are you ready tonight? All right, thank you, 4 people. Are you ready tonight? Yeah. Whoa, okay, turn into a mob. Number one is praise. A way to communicate well in your relationship with your spouse, but really these are good in every relationship you have that matters. Praise. Let me tell you what I see in you. Praise people. Let them know, man, you love them. Let them know you care about them. Add value to people. What if we wake up every day and have a mindset, who can I add value to today? Who can I invest in today? Whose world could I change today? I want to add value to people's life. If you think it, say it. Now be careful with that. Not everything you think you need to say, okay? So just back off on that. But when you think something about someone, hey guys, when you're hanging out at work or with friends and you're like, you know, my wife, she's just an unbelievable cook. She takes such great care of the kids. Go tell her that. Oftentimes we tell other people the positive things about others, but we never speak it to them. Go speak it to the person face to face. If you think it, say it. Proverbs 25:11, a word aptly spoken is like apples of gold in settings of silver. That sounds pretty good. Number 2 is thanksgiving. Learn to say thank you. Learn to say thank you every chance you get. Appreciate people. Say thank you. It's a missing thing in our culture. It's a missing thing in this next generation, learning to say thank you. Thank you. Appreciate people. Do it in your marriage. Say thank you. Proverbs 18:21, the tongue has the power of life and death. Listen to this. It has the power of life and death. That's so true. Did you know people today took their own life because of words that have been said over them? That's happening every day. Words have so much power. They have life and they have death. And I want to speak words of life. I want to speak words of life into my family, into my friends. I want to speak words of life into you every single week. Learn to speak words of life. Number 3 is affection. Affection. Some of you, this is a little too natural for you, if you know what I'm saying. And some of you, it's a little more difficult. Some of you, loving someone, saying I love you, giving a hug. You know, I can't wait till my son is old enough and me and my wife are just going to embarrass him and make out and wherever his friends are. It's just going to be awful. We're going to be that family because I'm okay with that kind of affection. We're going to drop him off for school and they're like, oh, there's the Hamptons again. Aren't they pastors? My Lord. Like, bro, we're just doing what God told us to do. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, affection. Tell people you love them. I tell people, it's so funny. Many of you, I tell you, and you're like, I don't even know this guy. And I'll tell you I love you. And a lot of times the response I'll get will be like, thanks. Like, okay, well, anything else you want to say? Maybe just send me a text or something. Like if you don't want to say it in person, but I love you. And they're like, oh, cool. So learn to say I love you and be okay with it. In fact, let's just practice right now. And I'm not even joking. I want to look at all of you and just tell you that I love you. My wife and I, we have such a love for you and this church. God has given us such a heart for you, and we may not even know you well. Tonight may be your first night here. Let me just tell you, we love you. And we want God to do something transformational in your life. We want to see God do miracles in you. We want to see you be your very best in Christ Jesus. And so we love you. Anything y'all want to say? Yeah, okay. I just got to say, last service, I'm trying to just prove a point. I'm really not insecure. After church, man, kids were coming and hugging me, and people were like feeling bad. I'm like, y'all, I'm okay. My wife tells me she loves me. I'm good. But anyway, I love you guys so much. I love you very, very much. Number 4 is encouragement. Learn to encourage the people you love. Thank you for the text I just got. Someone telling me they love me. I appreciate that. It worked. It worked. Sometimes it's write a letter. Sometimes it's send a text message, something. Encourage people. Encouragement. Ladies in the house, let me hear you. Any ladies in the house? Come on, let me hear you. Let me help you out with your husband. Your husband craves encouragement. Men come from a world where we like it. We like to be encouraged. We like to be celebrated. It doesn't mean you have to be waiting at the door when we come home clapping, but maybe. If you want to do that, babe, we could try it. It's fine. Celebrate them. Encourage them. Love them. I would tell you this. I hear this a lot. People say, man, I feel like we're too old for this church. No, you're just right, because we have a younger generation that needs you to encourage and mentor them. We need that. So you're not too old for this church. You're just right. We tell our son all the time. We tell him he's smart. We tell him he's handsome. We'll tell him God's got big plans for his life. He's 3. He doesn't even know what we're saying. But when he's 13 and 33 and 50, I'm going to keep telling him, God loves you. I want to encourage him. Encourage your kids. I was a youth pastor for a long time. And the thing that was primarily the issue with kids, with students, teenagers, when we would peel back the layers, was a missing dad, was an absent dad, was an abusive dad, was a lazy dad, was a worthless dad. You fill in the blank. It's basically they didn't have a dad showing up. He may have been there, but he wasn't present. We have got to do better in our own kids' lives, but also mentoring these kids that don't have parents. That's why we're so big on the foster programs around here and the orphanages around here. We want to be the hands and feet. And I know that I can't be their dad, but I know a heavenly Father that can fill that void. And so we got to learn, we've got to learn how to encourage one another. Encouragement. Come on, amen if you believe that today. Ephesians 4:29 says, don't let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouths, but only what is helpful for building others up according to their needs, that it may benefit those who listen. What a powerful, powerful verse. Number 5 is kindness, even in traffic. Jesus help me. I'm really going to try to practice this one. Kindness in traffic, kindness on days when you woke up on the wrong side of the bed, kindness when your wife doesn't bring you ranch dipping sauce. Instead, she brought you some other weird dipping you've never even heard of. It's like a mixture of stuff and you just don't like it. And anyway. Kindness when they don't deserve it. Come on, somebody. Which is what my wife's going to have to show me after this service. Kindness. Number 6 is truth and love. You know, it's okay to say what's wrong. It's not okay to enforce what's wrong. It's okay for things not to feel great in your marriage, in your relationships. But it's not okay to enforce the negative and bad feelings that you have. Truth without grace is just mean. But grace without truth is meaningless. So think about it this way. God gives us truth, and when we fail, which we all do, there's grace that comes and gives us another chance. Same thing should apply in every marriage, every future marriage. There's going to be mistakes, there's going to be failures, and we have the truth to know what our marriage should look like. But when one fails, we have grace that gives them another chance. Amen? Truth and love. And number 7, as I close, is prayer. Prayer. You want a great marriage? This is number 7, but it should be number 1. Make sure one of the greatest ways you're communicating in your marriage is through prayer. praying together. Jess, me, and Slade pray together every single night. Every single night we pray together. I pray for Jess. I pray for Slade. Prayer is a big part of the communication in our home. Prayer. The next time the urge, I would just challenge every one of you. The next time the urge to get into one of those heated matches over something, just take your spouse by the hand and say, hey, why don't we just pray? I dare you to try that. Just see what the enemy can do in your marriage when you start doing that kind of thing. Just see what happens to your marriage that's struggling when God is the center of everything you're doing once again. The way maybe it once was. Getting back to that and combating all these tools that the enemy uses. Listen, the devil has got the world separated through politics and religion. He's got churches celebrated. He's got Christians celebrated. Saying celebrated. Divided. I'm not celebrated. Let's back up. The devil has the churches divided. He's got the nation divided, and he wants to divide your marriage. He wants to end your marriage. Do you know that? Are you fighting as hard for your marriage as the devil is fighting to destroy your marriage? Listen, you have got a target on your back if you've got any kind of marriage at all. He wants to destroy it. And listen, 50% of the time it's working. Let's change that. Let's be the example, and we can do that through applying some of these things. Listen, I know some of you, man, you're writing down things like, yeah, I got to be nicer. I've got to encourage. I've not been encouraging my wife. I've not been praising him. I haven't been doing these things. Apply these and see what might happen in your life. I'm going to ask my wife to come up. And if you're a married couple, I'd love for you just to take the hand of the spouse that hopefully you're sitting by them. If you're not, we got some problems. Just take hands with that person. If you're engaged in the room, you can hold hands. Just sit about 6 inches apart. You'll be good. And I asked my wife, I'm just going to let her pray over all these amazing women, all these moms, and even the women that aren't married yet, just the future wives in this room. And then I'm going to pray for the men, and we're just going to believe for God to do something supernatural. You need to apply these things, but you also need to let the Holy Spirit work in your marriage right now. Some of you may be in the healthiest place ever. Awesome. Still apply it. Some of you may be in the lowest, worst moment ever. Let tonight be a transformational night in your marriage. And it takes more than just me. It takes her. It takes more than just her. We both have to be in it together.